Hello everyone, Chaminade Guard. This is John Marshall, the DrillMaster. This is the exhibition, armed exhibition sequence. Here we go.
Let's go, machine! Let's go, machine!
Bummer, but you caught. Well done. You recovered. You caught up. That was great. So, man, that's just performances or mind games like this. Competition. This is a sport, honestly. And it's all about getting past the difficulties, whether it's in training or practice or in a performance. And I hope you did it. You did so far, so that's a good thing. That really is. Well done. That was great. Slight timing issue on the spin there. And then was that a signal? I don't know. What's interesting is that something that makes a judge question is a good thing. I like the staggered position, and then the yeah, it looks like it was a signal because the commander's there. The tape design on there works really well, and you have 3 different positions for the rifles, staggered. Well thought out. Great. Off at an angle. Not an easy thing to do. And I always love these. They're really, when performed well and you're doing it, it works really well. So nice thing about critiquing like this is I get to rewind. So when I'm judging, critiquing solos, especially, I talk about a certain level, and I've written about this at my website. There are different levels for the different work, for the different things that we do. The different work with the drill design, just the marching. And then the different work that we do with body movement, and different work we do with the whatever piece of equipment we happen to have, whether it's a sword or a saber, a guidon, or a rifle. So when you get all 3 of those to match at any level, whether it's beginning, intermediate, or advanced, then everything gels really well and it works. When you start to drop levels and then pick back up and then drop back down, then things don't work as well as they could. So it's very applicable to solos. Solos are very unique and their own entity. What works in the solo world probably doesn't work in the drill team world, and vice versa. Even tandems are, and solos are kind of off on their own, even though tandem is a team, but it's not a drill team in the regards of 9 or 12, 16, something like that. So I notice here you have a pretty much a column half right, which is, it's fine. And then that kind of a counter march type of movement there, which is also just fine, but the execution of both. Let's go back here. This, it just doesn't work all that well. Eventually you pick up and everything smooths out, but here also, right there. Notice Commander is ahead. It looks like these two are it looks like they're even. But notice the variation of technique. Notice the variation of foot height here as well. So your kind of individual counter column, counter march, whatever you'd like to call it, it's fine to perform these movements. It's great. I think they're very fitting in junior ROTC exhibition drill. But the execution of this just really doesn't work well. The entrance set the bar high, and now you've dropped a little bit with in terms of execution. Rifle movement before this was great, but then you get into the and even here now, this is just it works well, but it would work better, especially with that toss. It would work better if you were as perfectly aligned as possible, because as you spin, notice that you have, let me try and back this up just a hair. There. All right. Notice that you have a white line going down the center of the rifle, so that you have dark, white, dark. It sticks out and it calls attention to everything. So notice here, this is variation of technique, and I'm not talking about just the spin itself. I'm talking about the spin height and the rotation. This is very close in rotation. These two, excellent, but look at the height. There's big differences in height. Here, rotation is very late here. These two, not bad at all, but I once had an argument with an active duty member on one of the service drill teams who said it's impossible to get spins to rotate exactly the same. Really? Is that so? Well, actually, you need to then tell that to all of the Winter Guard International, Drum Corps International, and Bands of America Color Guard members who can spin at a certain level, they much advanced, who can spin rifles exactly the same height, exactly the same rotation and spin, etc. It's possible. It just takes tons of work. Nice slow down of the tempo. So this move works. It doesn't work with the ooh. If it was closer to the audience. Now you have to remember that you're performing on a stage, and so if we think of a traditional stage, we think of all of the communication going one direction. Pretty much, some stages are a little curved, so there's a variation of the communication as far as direction is concerned, but it's still to the front. Now, you're not a musical ensemble, which requires specifics for sound, but as soon as you do this, something to do with sound, whether it's even a rifle, a butt slam, that can be considered a type of sound that needs projection, although it really, in that case, it doesn't matter necessarily where you are and how you're doing it. But this, when you're backstage, essentially, and you're giving a whoo instead of a hoo, that type of thing. So if you're going to be that far back, almost to the farthest reaches of your stage, of the performance area, then it needs to be, it needs to grab attention more. It needs to be a little more aggressive in the sound and also the movement. And so what you've done here is fine if it's closer. It's just the subtleties of position and the projection of the persona, and I'm really even getting into acting, and this is what we do. A performance like this is an act in a sense. You are playing a character because you don't do this all the time. So as soon as you get into your drill team uniform, as soon as you go into either training or, well, not necessarily training, but you train to be that character. But as soon as you start to practice, as soon as you start to perform, you are performing as the character of a drill team member. And that requires a certain level of performance and a knowledge of performance, so that certain moves work really well close up, but to your audience. Certain other moves can be really confusing when it's close up. If it's set back a little bit, then people can understand it better because they can see the whole team rather than one or two people right in front of them. So the projection here that you have, and it's quite possible that the wind carried it away. Amazing that we have wind in Texas. It just, that's what it is. It just happens to be the situation, but having a more powerful stance, even I would take this. I need to go back. Yeah. Okay. So the wind didn't really take it away. So you've got the rifle manipulation before that, and then and it's not powerful enough for the distance that you have. It was a little long-winded, but it bears explaining. So even the excuse me. See, look at the foot direction here. Even the variation of technique. Even just one foot diminishes slightly the impact that you're communicating to your audience. And so you want to be bigger than you are, which is why performers will stand with not with their shoulders pulled back. That's a misnomer. It's expanded chest, so it looks like you pull your shoulders back, but you don't pull them back. You expand the chest, you sit up, you stand up more. I'm sitting up, but you stand up and you look bigger because you want that effect coming across. That's why the silent drill platoon marches at port like this with the elbows out, because it's a bigger presence. So you want a bigger presence here because you're so far back, and you also want a much louder presence. So I would suggest a more aggressive turn as just a whip around instead of just a whoo, because it comes across as whoo. And then you're finished, and now we'll continue. And I don't mean to denigrate anyone. This is not an insult. It's just an explanation. Boy, the stripe down the side of the rifle just is powerful. It really is. So since that turn, this is almost run-of-the-mill performance now. whereas there was power there was an energy there. Now it doesn't seem to be there. With this step off there, some timing issues and a little bit of variation of technique, but really the foot lift, keeping the knees together, the foot lift, I guess, the foot lift really could have been much more horizontal for the bottom of the leg, and then stomping hard down instead of just well, this is another part of our performance. You can, so little bit of a struggle there with this this team member. Not a huge deal, still at the front though, and this is a Chaminade Guard signature step, but the energy is missing. Honestly, nice synchronization there. It worked well. Honestly, I think you really should have entered with that step. I think a little bit of a falter there. Recovered not as well as might be expected, but... And then there's a little bit of an anticipation there as well. The rifle positions are really quite exact here. And again, they, in general, they always need to be, but with that white stripe there, you've really got to pay attention to that, and you're doing that really well. Spacing's a little bit off. So instead of, and now here's what I'm talking about with the different performance levels. So you have a certain beginning, intermediate, advanced for marching, for body work, and then rifle work. And here for this recovery, this is basic. Because so if you don't want to create a different method, let's say you take the team and move all three. I can't do all three, but you move all three together, and then reform your block. Be a little bit of a different orientation, but still you'd reform the block. But if you're just going to march out and then over, then perform. Do something other than march at right shoulder. And, doing this is fine, but there's no performance there. It's just, of course, you're still performing. It's in the routine, but there's nothing really to continue telling the audience, yep, we're still performing. This is still the routine we're doing. You don't have to take a visual break and just go, oh, yeah, look at that cloud formation over there. And, oh, okay, they're back, and now we're going to watch the rest of the performance. Tell the audience through your performance that if they even blink, they're going to regret it. And this, the sidestepping, there's a better way to do all the movement. I like blind tosses, and I wish they would come back more often. But because of safety, spinning a rifle is inherently dangerous. So there, so you're not performing out to this position. And honestly, let's go back. With this step, it would be much better visually balanced if this side were to lift only their right foot. And Commander, I don't think you should lift either foot. I think you should stand still, and then have. So this line is a little bit off, but everybody over here lifts the left, everybody over here lifts the right, and that way you have a mirror image of that. It just calls for mirror image. You have two sides. There you go, and then in the middle you. In the middle, you have just the dividing line, as it were. So, and I was thinking you were going to do this. I suggest from. You're spinning to no one. Your audience is this way. So instead of this big split that you do right there, why are you going so far out? You could have actually the first cadet in line didn't have to move anywhere. So starting here, could have stayed right there. And then the line would have worked just fine. It would have closed it in finer point. I was wanting to see what was going to develop with such a wide gap there with the Commander in the middle. It's a wedge, but it's an unfinished wedge. So you can see that the team is making a wedge. Here is unfinished. Not a problem, but it's the gap there. Just you're separated quite a bit, and it's not necessarily all that well, all that good of. I'll put it that way. All that good of a visual impact. If you were closer, I really think it would make much more of an impact. Our Air Force ridiculous salute. So instead of reforming way over there and yeah, and then performing perform into reform around the Commander. So if you're so far out, it takes you so long to reform way over here, but if you were closer, you could reform right around the Commander and perform into that reformation of the block, and then take the team off as you're going to do. Great. Yeah, that was nice. Again, I hope my comments were helpful. I appreciate watching the team perform. I really do. I enjoy that very much. Very impactful. A couple things to work on here and there. Thank you.